All right. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our virtual Women in Leadership panel. I'm Chris Lambert, your coordinator of student leadership, engagement, and development. And it is truly an honor to be here today to welcome all of these fantastic women leaders. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to our guests. We're going to have a great, thoughtful, energizing, and deeply inspiring conversation. I know all of these women have really awesome stories, so I'm looking forward to hearing more from each of them. Joining us today, we have five leaders, and I'll introduce them in just a moment. But before that, I have a couple of housekeeping items. Just so everyone knows, we are being recorded. So if you don't want your face or comments or things in the recording, just make sure to turn your camera off, please. Also, if you would like to drop comments or any additional questions, the chat is being monitored by one of our ambassadors, Alyssa. And then if there is anything that we don't get to, in the essence of time, we are going to wrap it right at 1:30. If you want to email me at clambert@laurelridge.edu, I can get your questions to our panelists. So without further ado, I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves and share a little bit about their leadership role, where you work, and how many years you've served in a leadership capacity. And we're going to start with Katie.
Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here. I'm very excited about being on the panel. I am Katie Heritage. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Fauquier Habitat for Humanity here in Warrenton. I've been here about 2.5 years. Prior to that, I was the Deputy CEO for the Northwestern Community Services Board in Front Royal, but I had spent most of my career with the county government, Fauquier County government, 24 years. I was the Deputy County Manager.
Okay, thank you. And Carla.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I served 30 years in the Air Force, retired as a colonel, so I've had multiple leadership roles, and I'll just quickly go through a couple of them. As a second lieutenant, I was a special security officer. I ran a 24-hour intelligence communications center and supervised 30 people. As a first lieutenant, I was up at NSA running a collections team of 18 people. As a major in the Pentagon, I was division chief twice with 30 people each. As a lieutenant colonel, this was a pivotal point in my life. Um, I was the squadron commander in Hawaii, responsible for 480 people. As a colonel, I was a group commander back at NSA with 2,800 people. Um, After that, I went to Bulgaria as the defense attaché. I had a staff of 6, but we represented all facets of America's military to the Bulgarians. And then when I returned, I was back to DIA as a division chief responsible for the attaché offices in 12 countries. So it was 16 years in supervisory roles interspersed with special assignments.
Awesome. Thank you, Carla.
Mhm.
Amy.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Amy Fuentes. Believe it or not, when you asked this question, I had to think. I have 40 years of leadership experience, everything from groups, associations, organizations, companies, running my own company. Um, and right now, I am a transformational public speaker helping individuals and companies shift their mindset and their perspective so that they can see their problems as possibilities and their obstacles as opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. And Johanna.
Hey everybody, my name is Johanna Weiss. I am the Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs here at Laurel Ridge Community College. I have worked in Virginia's community colleges for 20 years. I started off as a faculty member at Northern Virginia Community College, where I taught and served as Assistant Dean for 6 years. I worked at Bright Point Community College, formerly known as John Tyler, for 12 years as a Dean and Associate Vice President, and I've been serving here at Laurel Ridge for the past 2 years, and I'm excited to be part of the panel here today.
Thank you. And last but not least, Jeanian.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Jeanian Clark, Laurel Ridge Community College. And like Amy, I kind of had to think about because it feels like a really long time in a really good way, going all the way back to being a 4-H camp counselor starting at the age of 12. But yeah, the industry sectors I've worked in is automotive and IT, and finally just being so fortunate to come to higher ed, and what an amazing place this is to be. So I've had the joy of almost 2 decades, a little over 2 decades in higher ed, and loving every minute.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate it. We're going to jump right in with our first question. And our first question is, what core values guide your leadership decisions? And I know, Jeanian, this one was one that you really wanted to speak to, so I'm going to kick it over to you.
I love this one. So thank you, Chris, for coming up with such a great list of questions and kicking it off with this, because at the heart of everything, do believe it's so important to not only have your own core values that you operate off of, because it's just too easy to go with the flow and really lose yourself in the corporate world, in your career, if you don't intentionally really understand what's key and important to your happiness and your intrinsic motivations and drive. But then secondarily, I have found it incredibly powerful that a team identifies its core values and makes all decisions from that center of gravity. So personally, my two core values have always been, I want to be the CEO. And no, my boss is on this call and she's the president. I don't want your job. There's no money in the world that could pay me to do all the things Dr. Blosser has to do. For me, CEO has always stood for Chief Encouragement Officer, always looking for that opportunity to lift others up, shine a light on what's right, call out the good stuff, because we hear and see a lot of bad stuff. And I don't mean that from a cheerleader on the sideline kind of way, but just sincerely, privately, publicly coming alongside folks and really taking that opportunity to shine a light on what's right. Second personal core value is to be unclear, is to be unkind. So many mixed messages, so much noise. I've really, really found that to be incredibly clear with everyone, from my best friend to my husband to the team that I work with my intentions, with my questions, with direction, really has been something that has brought a lot of peace, both professionally and personally. And I think definitely with the culture that we've set, it really does work well to have that crystal clear messaging. And then secondly, I did share that it's been a huge multiplier effect to have core values within the team that we're able to work with and workforce. And not only do we make all of our interpersonal relationship decisions based on those core values, we make our business decisions on them. We filter them through them. So it's a really helpful distillation tool to make sure you're just always aligned with that. And it's really paid off.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeanian. Would any of our other panel? Yes, Amy.
All right, I want to build on that a little bit. I love that, Jeanian. I also, you know what? I actually had to look at a list of core values because I wanted to really hone in on what what really makes the impact and what makes me different than a lot of leaders out there. And mine is curiosity. I'm very curious what causes people to behave the way they do. And so I know we're going to get later into conflict and things along those lines, but leading from an area of curiosity and open-mindedness is very important when we're leading individuals or leading within families, organizations, or groups. Another thing that you touched on, Jeanian, is recognition. I feel like so often we're so many people are really quick to jump down your throat about the things you did wrong, but so often wait until the quarter or the end of year to focus on the things that people do right. And so as a leader, I intentionally look for and support people in the things that they do right, because as leaders we want them to continue to do things that we deem are in the interest of the company or the organization, or frankly in the relationship in our families. And let's see, one other thing, growth. I think that as a leader looking at how I can help somebody else get better is something that I really think about as I interact with and guide people in order to in order to achieve the goals of the company or of them themselves.
I see Katie's hand.
Yes, I was going to add ethics. Many professions have their own code of ethics, like the legal profession or the public administration profession, but in others, we have to just kind of assume what they are. And generally, people know right from wrong, but honesty and transparency are critical when working with the public.
Carla?
Yeah, a couple things. First, I want to segue off. Amy, you had a really great point. I call it catapulting talent. Um, when I took that squadron in Hawaii, 324th Intelligence Squadron, I realized right off the bat it was the most losing unit in the entire state for professional quarterly and annual awards. That meant that really good, talented people's careers were getting squished. The reason that was occurring is because their bosses were unable to write compelling nomination packages so that they could actually win the deserved awards. So I took 3 days off and analyzed my own writing. I developed a technique called word sculpting. I turned this little book into a 1 hour class. I taught my guys how to write so that it brings tears to the reader's eyes. And we started sweeping the awards. I ended up teaching that for the next 20 years while I was still on active duty, wherever I went. When I retired, I took all of that and I wrote a book. It's now on the second edition. It's called Right to Influence. It's won 11 national level awards, and people have come up to me over the years saying, Carla Bass, if it hadn't been for, I wouldn't have been able to. So part of being able to catapult the careers of deserving people is being able to write the accolades for their annual performance awards or put them in for bonuses or whatever it is, but you have to tell that powerful story. Now, my other core values, when my father also retired as a colonel from the Air Force, when he commissioned me, he said three pieces. He said, one, stay focused on the mission, don't get caught up in office politics. Two, take care of your people and they will take care of you, which is integral to who I am. And three was keep your sense of humor because you have to have a lighthearted touch. You can't take anything too seriously. I add three pieces to that. One is recognize and listen to wisdom when you encounter it because it can come from unexpected sources. The next one is empathy, but you can't empathize with people unless you know who they are. So back in that 324th time frame, I was working regular day job, but I would go into the mid shifts often, and I'd spend hours sitting on the racks with the young enlisted kids and just talking to them and listening to them. That way I could empathize with who they are, where they were, what their needs were. And then last core value is work hard and play hard as a team. That play hard part so often gets overlooked. It's all part of teamwork and building and just going, or celebrating a needed victory.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, we talked about values. Now we're going to go a little bit on the opposite side. Could any of you share an experience where you turned failure into a learning opportunity? And I know, Carla, I know you wanted to talk on this one, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, okay. So now I'm in Korea. I am running a prototype, as in a proof of concept intelligence collection system. Generals all over the services are watching this to see if it's going to work. So I operated it, I directed what was being collected against, and I wrote the after action reports daily. The first report that I wrote, I included details that I ought not to have included, which resulted in a really bad security incident that was really, really visible. Um, I was mortified, doesn't even come close to capturing how I felt, mortified, shocked, and so forth. It was awful. So I learned really rapidly details that you put in and don't put into that particular report because of the classification level. a colleague saw this happening and recognized how distraught I was. He took me out that afternoon for a double scotch. I hate scotch. I ended up marrying him. And 42 years of blissful marriage, we met over a security incident and a double scotch. So there's my story about turning failure into victory.
That's an awesome story. Johanna?
Yeah, I think we all have to embrace failure. We always have to learn from it. I have a similar story. I didn't find my husband this way, but I did find a career. I was a faculty member at Nova, and I interviewed for a dean position at Northern Virginia Community College, and I didn't get it. In fact, they decided to hire no one instead of hiring me, which is always the worst feeling. Um, but during that process, I met somebody who was involved with the Virginia Women's Network, which is a great opportunity in higher education. And it was through there that I met Donna Alexander, who was at that point a dean at John Tyler Community College. And when she left her position, she called me and encouraged me to apply. Um, and I did, and that is actually how I started my career in administration at the community college level. And so it was through not getting that job and meeting somebody at the interview panel that I ended up kind of on the trajectory of getting my current positions. So I think about that as thinking about all the things that you don't get and all the mistakes you do make as opportunities for growth and for finding the right opportunities that might come your way. And so I think that there are lots of opportunities that are likely to come your way at the right time in the right places. And the mistakes that you make are always things that, I find as a leader, it's really important to be to be self-reflective and introspective about where you can learn from your mistakes. It's important to be open and honest and own them. And to always find opportunities for growth. But I think back to that job where they hired no one instead of me, and that was an opportunity for me to meet people that led me down to future opportunities to where I am now. And so I think just like you met your husband, I found my future job through the connections I met in that opportunity. So.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Johanna. Amy?
I love that, Johanna. And it's funny because it segues into exactly what I wanted to say, which is I know this is going to sound a little bit odd and people might think, well, yeah, it's easy for you to say, but I truly don't believe in failure unless you don't even try. If you don't do it, that is true failure. But if you're trying to do anything, you can't fail. You can only fail if you don't try. And so, to your point, Johanna, when things don't go my way, because we all make goals, and those goals I look at as that is my North Star. That is the trajectory, that is the journey, that is the path that I'm going to be taking. But that doesn't necessarily that means that I'm going to actually get to that North Star. It just means that that's going to take me on an adventure to someplace else that I may have to pivot, or because I didn't know the information when I started on that goal. And now that I'm on that journey, I get information and I have the ability to pivot. I wouldn't say that is like you. I wouldn't say that's a failure that you didn't get that job. You failed up, right? It's only failure if you lay down and you don't do. So, um, I think that reframing what we call, I know that people constantly say that use failure as a learning opportunity. Again, if you're actually going through life and you're pursuing something, you're doing something, you're in the game, you're on the field, you're so far ahead of many people who are still who's sitting on the sofa talking about what the thing is that they're going to do. So instead of being afraid of failing, be afraid of the regret that you'll feel by not even pursuing.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. All right. So we are going to pivot to from learning from failure to how to approach difficult conversations or conflict. So, how would you all approach these difficult conversations or conflict within your teams? Jeanian, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Be happy to. Personally, I don't know if any of you guys do the Myers-Briggs, the MBTI, but if you have the preference of J, you know that closure is a very important piece to your leadership style, as opposed to P, which are more comfortable leaving things a little unscripted and open-ended. So I am a lifelong J struggler of needing closure for everything. And so I think this probably drives me to want to take on conflict and resolve conflict, but obviously needing to find a healthy way for that to manifest if you're wearing the leadership hat. And so I found two remarkable pieces of work out in the leadership field that really help me frame it in a much healthier way rather than the personal need to always drive closure. And that's the book, if you guys have ever read it, by Patrick Lencioni, The Five Dysfunctions of Teams. And then a second one that's really wonderful is called Crucial Conversations. And they very much take that body of conflict and frame it in the terminology productive conflict. Most folks, nearly all folks, you give them the grace and the benefit. They're coming with the best of intentions to a situation. They're not willfully looking for ways to start conflict at work or to engage in conflict at work. Sure, there's the very, very small percentage of those who enjoy stirring the pot. But a lot of times it's because of things like limited resources, limited time, things that are constraint that pit one party against another, not from the standpoint of folks have it out for each other. So through the framework of five dysfunctions of teams and crucial conversations, that productive conflict framework really helped me to put the mindset of always driving closure into introducing conflict in organizations as something that can be healthy, something that you don't have to fear or run from, something that doesn't need to shut you down. For the most part, I actually enthusiastically engage conflict in those tough conversations. Another thing over the years that's really been super helpful is if you're in a leadership role or you're thinking about delving into the leadership arena, you 100% can put your money down that folks are going to come to you and vent. They're going to tell you things about their teammates. They're going to tell you things about your peers. They're going to share with you information or things that are rubbing them wrong. It's just part of your world as a leader. And two of the things that I found really, really healthy to help me, because again, I'm a diehard J. I always want closure. I always want to fix things. I've had to step back and say, listen, I need to ask you something. Are you sharing this because you need to vent? Or are you sharing this because you want me to fix it? And so that really helps me to chill my jets versus, okay, no, they're asking for help. And then secondarily, if they do answer, hey, yeah, I am venting because I need you as a leader to intervene, to help with the situation, then the second gear that always drops into place automatically is, you do know once you pull me in, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. Your relationship with your peers ever changed if you kick this up to my level? Have you gone one-on-one and talked with a sincere heart to your colleague, to your peer, to your teammate to just say, hey, I don't know if you realize this is coming off this way, but this is what's happening. Because you owe it that, because your relationship is going to be forever changed once you get me involved. So there's always that pump the brake moment that we do have in the conversations. And then, yeah, if they've done that, and they've usually tried it 2, 3, 4 times, then yeah, it becomes an opportunity for productive conflict conversation that I become more of a facilitator rather than a standby. But in the end, I'll sum it up. Conflict's going to exist. Do not sweep it under the rug. It will erode your culture, and hit it head on.
Good stuff. Thank you, Jeanian. From conflict, I also would like to hear from a couple of you. How do you handle situations when you are underestimated as as a leader or even a colleague? Amy?
I laugh. Bring it on. Bring it on. Please underestimate me. Because then I only can impress you. I always under promise and over deliver. And I love when people look at me and they say, "Oh, blonde, 5'3". And I come through and totally blow them away and just leave laughing. So bring it on is what I say. I'm going to show up as me, and that doesn't stop me. It only charges me up.
Good stuff. I like it. Carla, I know you had some things you wanted to share on this topic.
Yes, thank you. So I decided when I was in seventh grade, I was going for Air Force and specifically Air Force intelligence. That was my dream, and I held on tightly to that. My first day in the office, this is 1978. First day in the office, I met my boss for the first time. He said, Carla, we fought against having you. We didn't want a second lieutenant, but the Personnel Center said if we didn't take you, we wouldn't get anybody. His boss, when I met his boss minutes after that, he said very nicely, he said, Carla, why don't you just go home and raise a family? So right off the bat, I knew what I was up against. But
Oh.
this was my dream. I waited a really long time for it. So I rolled up my sleeves and I just thought, well, I'll show you. So the bottom line to all this is for the next 2 years with that communications team and two admin security specialists, we accomplished so many incredible first ever dones, benchmark programs. Um, I ended up being nominated for and was awarded a meritorious service medal. Second lieutenants never ever get meritorious service medals. They just don't, especially for only a 2 year tour. So the answer is if I had to work twice as hard as everybody else, and I did, but I was defending my country and my dream, and this just meant everything to me. So that's how they underestimated me. And the word traveled. Nobody ever underestimated me again.
I love that. It's awesome. We are going to pivot again, and we're going to look at what was the turning point in your career that made you realize you were a leader? Katie?
Well, I guess you could say I always wanted to be a leader, and in college and grad school, you kind of get suspicious when everybody wants you, when you do those group projects and they need the team leader. You have to wonder, are they doing, is that because you're a leader or is that because, you're willing to do all the work? But I think really the first inclination was I started off my career as a probation officer, unbelievably. And when I got asked to be the president of the state association, it made me realize that my peers considered me a leader. And, it was a turning point for me.
Awesome. Thank you. Amy?
I didn't really have an answer for this one, and something that just popped into my head was I realized that I was a leader when I couldn't stand how someone else was leading. When it was so badly done, or everybody was grumbling and coming to me to fix what was happening. Um, I never thought I was a leader, but I realized that, through those kinds of situations that, it just happened to, transpire that way.
Thank you. Carla?
Yeah, I'd been a leader, but I didn't really recognize it as such. I was just doing my job and taking care of the people. When I took that squadron in Hawaii, that's when I realized, like, oh my golly. First thing I did when I arrived was I gave all 480 people a survey. It was a two-question survey. And it was the +3 -3 survey. Tell me 3 things you like about the unit and 3 things that if you were the commander, what would you change? You can sign it, you can not sign it, you can type it, you can write it on a piece of a paper towel. I just want your input. What I discovered is that I had just inherited a badly broken unit. The only thing they liked about the unit was the climate in Hawaii, the beaches, and the golf courses. And the ails that they identified were prolific. So I prioritized all of those things. And then I back briefed everybody. I said, this is what you told me about our unit, and explained the areas that we were going to fix collectively. This is not a I, this is a we. So that I called problem definition. And then we launched just a slew of initiatives to address those problem areas, things that had never been done in other Air Force organizations. The next thing we did, I had my public affairs office um, publicized this stuff. So in those days, there was no internet, there was no Google, there were no cell phones. So the only way that we had to communicate with our colleagues, this was a 16,000 person organization that was worldwide. And there was a monthly publication that was, I mean, widely read. It's called The Spokesman. So for every one of our initiatives, I had my PA guy write an article about it so that all of Air Intelligence Agency knew the wonderful things that the 324th were doing. And here's one. We established a choir, and we performed in front of Bob Hope and the Andrews sisters for the 50th anniversary of the victory of World War II. Down here was the word sculpting, hit Wheeler Air Force Base. And so the moral there is that publicity, marketing your wonderful accomplishments goes a long, long way. As a result of all of that, the unit blossomed, and they stood tall and proud among their colleagues throughout the Air Intelligence Agency. That was a far cry from being a major division chief. There was a lot of crafting and hard work and incorporating the skills throughout my squadron to be able to make all of these initiatives come to fruition. That's when I discovered what leadership is all about.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm wondering, how do you all maintain resilience in the face of professional setbacks? Who would like to kick us off? Katie? Oh, Katie, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, I think my family and friends are very supportive. My husband is a rock. I can rely on my faith. I have 2 furry babies. Fresh air and exercise helps. And I just think, you need to try to be as emotionally intelligent as you can in the face of setbacks, because it's not easy to do that. And, it's easy to give that advice, but it's not always easy to do that. So, but I think you gain skill in that over time.
Thank you. Johanna?
Now, I would broaden this question up a little bit and think about how you stay resilient, when you have both professional and personal setbacks. I think as a woman leader, you end up having a lot of, you've got to balance out what's happening with your family, you've got to balance out what's happening professionally. And so, I think for me, it's been about really, and I was thinking about this with the last question as well, and even with the values, I've always been very driven about my values are really tied to making a difference, this deep commitment to, to impacting students' lives, to the value of the work that we do, and to making a difference. And so I think when things get hard personally or professionally, I really try to find the value in the work that we're doing. I try to see how the impact that it's making in the world, in the students' lives, and I try to find the hope and the value and the faith in that. And so I think that's how I find resilience is I try to hunker down and see the good work that I'm doing or I've done and try to have faith and hope that whatever is happening, whether it's in my personal life or my professional life, that things will get better and that the work that we're doing has value. And so I think as we ride out these tough professional or personal times, trying to make sure that you find work that you feel good about, that you feel like is your calling, that makes a difference is really important. And that's one way I think you build some resilience is making sure that the work that you find aligns with your values and your faith and your calling is really going to be important, so that you can find that balance personally and professionally.
Awesome. Thank you, Johanna. All right. So, how do you all stay focused and productive in the face of distractions? Amy.
All right. I have to chuckle because I am a self um, labeled ADHD person. I seem to flip between a million different things. I always have a million items open on my computer, which drives my husband crazy. And the way, and especially, we haven't really touched on this, but as women leaders, we go through such a variety of emotions and hormones, either monthly or when we end up going through menopause. And the things that worked for me before I went through menopause definitely didn't work after menopause. And I got very overwhelmed. And so the way that I stay focused is I tell myself that I absolutely have to do 1 to 3 things by X amount of time, whether that's by lunchtime, whether that's by the time I leave. And so when I get things being thrown at me, and I need to stop and say, okay, I will address this in an hour when I do this one thing that I have to do before the end of the day. Making sure that I'm very clear of the things that have to get done versus I want to get done is also a really big difference. I used to think everything had to get done and it would cause me incredible stress. And now I sit and I say, what does absolutely cannot be delayed? And I try my best to tackle that one first. But even if I don't, like a million things happen to me before I even pick up my first phone call, I say I have to be able to tackle this by a certain time frame. And if I have to turn off everything else in order to get it done to be able to focus, I do it. It's easy when you have a deadline, right? Like you're writing a paper, you're writing a book, you're preparing for a meeting, preparing what you want to handle for a conflict. But it's a little bit more nebulous when you're working on a project that you're pushing along yourself and there's self imposed deadlines. So having that agreement with myself, like you can't even go to the bathroom until you finish doing this, or turn your ringer off your phone and put it in a drawer, allows me to at least get that just one item done. Because as leaders, we are fielding a lot of different requests and situations throughout the day. And I used to work like before work or work after work and or on the weekend. So you're always working, and that's not really healthy. So doing it this way has been a huge game changer.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Anybody else? How do you deal with distractions? Carla.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Amy said. You were spot on there. One thing I'd like to add is delegation. If you have a staff, okay, is delegate some of these valid distractions. First, you have to validate them, but that gives younger people a chance to stretch their own wings, to have projects of their own. It's a learning opportunity for them, and then that gives you the fodder that when it comes time to write their annual appraisals, that they have something to bring to the table because you had the wisdom to delegate it to them.
Nice. Amy?
Yeah, Carla, thank you for bringing that up because that was one of the things I did want to also say, and that was spot on. When so often we feel like we have to do it all as leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and instilling the confidence and the capability to delegate or give them the opportunity. There's a TV show that my kids watched decades ago called The Magic School Bus, and she would always say, "Make mistakes, get messy." And as leaders, giving our groups the opportunity to make the mistakes to learn, as long as they're not catastrophic mistakes, but giving them the opportunity to learn and grow and not do it all ourselves. And empowering them to take some of those
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities. So spot on, Carla. Thank you for bringing that one up.
Ah, you're welcome.
Katie?
Yes, I was going to say, I think the more you're recognized as a leader, the more you're sought out, and sought out to sit on panels and sought out to chair committees and to be on committees and to volunteer. And at some point, you have to be able to say, I have to prioritize what I have to do here, and I can't do that. There was one point where I was sitting on like 7 committees, and that was outside of work. And it was just too much. And you really can't give your whole effort to anything if you're trying to split yourself up that way. So you have to be able to say no at some point when it's really gets to be impossible.
It's really good advice. So being a good leader means that you also have to be able to take those curveballs. So I'm going to throw you all a curveball. This wasn't one of the original questions that I shared with you all. Where do you go or what do you do to recharge your social battery? So you're a leader, you're on the spotlight all the time. What do you do when you need to recharge for you? Amy?
Um, Self-care is really important. I can't say it enough. Women, we don't care for ourselves. We don't make time for ourselves. Um, I'm just as guilty, and for decades put myself last and ran and served from an empty, cracking cup. And I now I don't do that. It's so much easier to serve from the saucer when my cup is overflowing than to serve from an empty cup. So I acknowledge when I'm starting to run thin, when I get really snappy or hangry or any of those things. And what used to charge me up was being around friends and laughing and having a good time. But as I've gotten older, that requires a lot more of my energy.
Mm-hmm.
So now sitting with my dog,
Mhm.
just breathing and looking at the clouds and doing, animals out of the like totally and completely turning it off, because what's a lot of people don't realize is that our brains can't think or feel two things at the same time. So when you're feeling overwhelmed because you're dealing with all this stuff, if you focus on one thing, which is just what animal is that cloud looking like, your mind can't possibly worry, fret, stress about all of the other things. And that in and of itself, with a deep breath, can a lot of times recharge me in a quick moment. If I need more than that, then we're talking to like Calgon bubble bath, like kind of a moment. Well, take a long walk in the woods with my dog, kind of a moment. Some people go for a glass of wine, but cluing in on what you need and giving yourself what you need is the best gift you can give to your staff and the people that you lead.
Awesome. Katie?
Piano therapy.
Oh, like that.
Very good one. Yes. Would anyone else like to share how to recharge your social battery? Any words of wisdom?
No, but Chris, I've been thinking
Yeah,
about what Jean. Tell me how you say her name.
Jeanian.
Jeanian. Jeanian said about conflict because I've been really thinking about what she said, and I agree with all of it. Um, my thing that I was going to add was to have them, right? To address them and not sweep them under the rug, which is what she said. But one thing that I want to leave people with is a good way to start the conversation, right? Because a lot of times when, let's say, you have somebody that is consistently coming in late, and we've had the conversation a million times, and they're still coming in late. You want to say so bad, why are you coming in late? Why can you not come in on time? But when we start a sentence with why, it puts the person on defense. And so switching the language and doing something as simple as starting your sentence with what or how totally and completely shifts the energy and really gives you the information that you're really looking for. Because what you're looking for is what is keeping you from coming to work on time? Maybe it's a dying parent. Maybe it's a special needs child. Maybe it's a car that literally falls apart and doesn't work more than it does. And they don't feel comfortable telling you that because you're constantly saying, "Why are you late?" And they don't want, they're on defense. But asking them what causes you not to come to work on time, or how can I support you better to come to work on time? Starting a sentence with how or what is going to be way more beneficial with your teams, with your relationships personally and professionally. Like Jeanian, when you said, hey, have you had that conversation with your peer before you bring me into it? Giving them the tools to have a productive conversation instead of "you're pissing me off." Right? Start with I feel very annoyed when I have to constantly remind, like, start sentences with, we all know this. Many of us that have gotten to this level of leadership know these things, but we forget them a lot of times. To even, especially in personal relationships, right, with spouses or loved ones, siblings or parents. A lot of times you're just like, "You pissed me off." And instead of starting the sentence with you, starting with I and talking how I feel and how I'm dealing with it all, will help again de-escalate how others are feeling, and handle that conflict in a calmer, kinder, more curious, which goes back to my ethic, my core values way. So I wanted to give people those tools, if you will, when dealing with conflict.
Good stuff. I also wanted to, in the chat, this goes along with this question. Alyssa or Valeria, who's typing through Alyssa. How do you relax when your mind still goes 100 miles a minute? Johanna said yoga is a good place to start. Katie said reading, go into a different world. That is a really good one. All of those are really good. So I did want to mention those before we move on to our final question, if you can believe it. So I want to hear from each of you before we close. What advice would you give to younger women or anyone who's aspiring to step into a leadership role? And I'm going to kick it over to Jeanian to get us started.
All right, Chris. Thanks for that softball. So for me, I definitely would say recognize life comes in waves and seasons, and you don't have to have it all or do it all in a season. There are seasons for everything. There are seasons as you start your career, there are seasons as maybe you start your family, there are seasons that you are a caregiver. They ebb and flow, and I think in recognizing that you can't have them all buttoned up simultaneously, that sometimes you're going to have to pull back in areas that maybe you don't want to, but to the self-care point or to being the best you can be in that season, either for yourself or someone else, there's that give and take. And especially, oh my gosh, I'm a mom of a 20-year-old girl, and just seeing the pressures that she has on her as a 20-year-old that I couldn't even imagine, just coming alongside of her and speaking into her those grounding principles that she needs as far as understanding not everything has to happen at once. You don't have to have this all figured out right now. It's okay to ebb and flow with those seasons. And I think that's super important. I think it's super important you have other females to, or males for that matter. Oh my gosh, some of the best advice I've ever gotten are from the guys. Just that you really can bounce those things off of. And then last for me, I'll definitely share, and I think it might have been Amy or Katie that said this earlier. Andy Stanley has a great quote that I love, and I have used it for 15 years probably. No for now, not forever. No for now, not forever. And for a number of boards that I've been asked to sit on, Katie, I heard that one, or just things in life. It's not that your heart doesn't want to, you just have to leave that margin for your sanity. And I think it's a lot easier to say no for now, but not forever than that hard no for a lot of us who want to be people pleasers. So that's one of my favorite little quotes to whip out when I need it.
That was a good one. Thank you. Katie.
I would say find a mentor or mentors. If you have somebody who you admire and respect and you face a difficult situation, try to think through how they might handle it. That's always worked for me. You have to try to use your head and your emotional intelligence because one word, one email sent without thinking can mean everything. So you have to really use your head, and that's always harder to do than to just tell somebody to do. And I would say, I love the quote, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. Because whatever you encounter in your career, there's no reason to make enemies for no reason. You really have to choose your battles and be nice to people on the way up because you never know what people are going through. So I think it's important to remember that.
That was amazing. Thank you. Carla.
Yeah, two things. The first is look up, look down, and look across. What I mean by that is looking up, your mission is to support the boss. So you need to find out what the boss's goals are, what he or she needs, and then how you can rally your team to meet those goals. Um, and not just taking orders from what the boss says, is empathize with what the boss needs, anticipate his or her needs, and that shows initiative on your part. So that's looking up. Looking down is explaining what the boss's goals are to your troops, to your staff, and add your own goals to that. And incorporating in that are things that you've learned that they want because you've communicated with them before. So that's down, look down. Looking across is looking at your colleagues because quite often we have to collaborate with others, with our equals, either within the organization or externally to the organization. So look up, look down, look across. The other big piece of advice is learn to write powerfully. When I taught a leadership class there a couple of times now, and people never think, they don't recognize how powerful writing is to successful leadership. So that's my battle cry now is learn to write powerfully, and you can accomplish things for yourself, your organization, and for your people that would not happen otherwise.
Fantastic. Johanna.
My advice is don't wait for a title to be a leader. Bloom where you're planted. I think a lot of times people define themselves by whatever their title is or their job, and they think, well, I'm only this, I'm not a leader. I think we're all leaders. And so, I've never confined myself to whatever my job title is. I always have looked for more responsibilities and to grow. And so there's an expression that says, bloom where you're planted, and so I think if you're someone who always looks for opportunities and asks, and looks to grow, mean, we can all be leaders no matter where we are in an organization. And I think I've had my career that I've had because I have always looked for those opportunities and looked for ways to grow and volunteered for things and gotten outside my comfort zone. And so I think we shouldn't define ourselves, by our job titles. We should always look for opportunities and that we can be a leader no matter where we are in an organization. And so that would be my advice, is to always seek out opportunities for growth and to realize that you can lead from no matter where you are. And so you can be a leader today. It's not something you have to aspire to be. It's just really that curiosity and the mindset. And so I encourage, everybody on the phone call to start thinking of themselves that way. Yeah, that's my advice.
Awesome. Thank you. And Amy.
Wow, you didn't leave much for me, you guys.
I'm
You
sorry.
covered so much, so much. These are so many good nuggets of information. I really hope that the audience is listening because these are great. Um, Mine, I'm it's changing. As everybody's saying things that I would have said, but I think that you need to be you, right? When you be you, you give permission to be them. And so many people are trying to be someone else. I think Oprah said one time she wanted to be who do you remember? Barbara Walters. She wanted to be Barbara Walters. And she's like, I'm no Barbara Walters. Don't try and be a Jeanian. Don't try to be a Katie, a Johanna, a Carla, or an Amy. Be the best version of you. I also would suggest that you listen more than you speak. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. And when you listen more than you speak, you really hear what needs to happen and what needs to be done. And when you do have something to say, please use your voice and say it. So many people have such amazing ideas, but they think, I'm just a fill in the blank. I'm just a receptionist. I'm just a janitor. I'm just a whatever. I'm just a teacher. And you're not just a anything. You are that. And being a human, you have experiences and knowledge that you can bring to every situation. Doesn't mean that you have to have a title of president, like Johanna said. Be the leader that you are. We all have it in us, even if you don't have that label. um and be the change that you want to see. You so often can see the things that you want to happen, and taking the steps to make it happen automatically allow you to be the leader and blossom into the leader that you intrinsically are, if that is something that you want to pursue.
Right, all really great stuff. So, as we close, I would like to welcome our college president, Dr. Blosser, to share a few words.
Yeah, I'm just here to say thank you all so much for participating. Thank you, Chris, for setting it up. It's been a wonderful hour to learn from you all. I don't think I could add anything other than I will say, as you move up in leadership roles, the best thing you can ever do is surround yourselves by the smartest people you can surround yourself with. You met two of our folks here that are in leadership positions. I am blessed by having a tremendous leadership team. And the more you can surround yourselves with people that know more than you know about certain areas, the better leader you're going to be and the better your organization is going to always perform, is to always just surround yourself with smart people. I think that's the only other thing I could add to anything you all said, because it was such a wonderful, enriching conversation. And thank you all so much for being part of it and for sharing your wonderful backgrounds. We had such a diverse backgrounds of folks. So thank you all so much for taking your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim. Last but not least, I would like to thank our audience. We had our student ambassadors, our Laurel Ridge staff, faculty, and administration, and a few community guests join us. So thank you all for joining us today. If you want to check out these amazing responses again, we did record this. We're going to post it on the website in the next couple of days. And other than that, I thank you again, and everyone have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.